What's up, crew? This is Tim Cant for Loopmasters, and today we are going to be looking at humanity's greatest cultural achievement. That's right, jungleistic breakbeats. Specifically, we're going to be laying up some fresh new beats from Loopmasters Original Jungle Breaks. So without further ado, let's get slicing and dicing. I began by looking for breaks that I thought might sit well together. There are lots of breaks in Original Jungle Breaks that feature ride cymbals, and I didn't really want to have to try and get two ride-heavy breaks to work together, so I selected one break with rides, that's Full Drums Collide from the 168 BPM folder, and one without, which is Push It Kid from the 163 BPM folder. I set the project tempo to 170 BPM so that I'd have to process both breaks to fit the tempo, and got to work on the first break. If we were using a break we'd sampled from a piece of music, we'd have to make sure that we'd put the start point of the sample at the beginning of the first downbeat, i.e. the kick, but that's not necessary with these lovely Loopmasters samples. As we know that the sample begins on the first downbeat, we can go right ahead and tune the sample to fit the tempo. Activating the metronome allows us to hear how the break fits with the project's click track. I prefer to use as little time stretching or pitch shifting on breaks as possible, at first at least, so I make sure that the audio clip is unwarped. This means that any change of the tuning affects the sample's pitch and tempo, but no slicing or granular processing occurs, which is the surest way to preserve the break's transients. When we play back the break at its original pitch, we can hear that it's not quite in time, and we can see that the snares are getting further and further behind the beat as the sample goes on. If we turn the detune amount up, we see that the snares fall into line and the beat sounds tighter with the metronome. If we set the detune to plus 20 cents, we can be sure that we're in the right ballpark because the beat is sounding more or less on point when we turn on our DAW's looping mode. Let's take a closer look at Full Drums Collide. This break has a couple of tricky characteristics. First, there's no kick at the start of its second bar, which makes it a bit trickier to hear how in time it is, and also if we zoom into the snare, we see that it plays slightly after the beat. This gives the break a loose feel that's more apparent when we have the rigid metronome activated. While all this organic looseness is very lovely, let's tighten things up a bit. Let's loop the first bar of the break. Then, turning live snap off, we slice the start of the snare and bring it forward so that it plays more tightly on the second beat of the bar. This makes everything following the snare in the break play sooner, and everything is looking and sounding right apart from the second kick, which is playing a bit before the 6th, 8th note. We don't want to affect the timing of the snares and hats, which we feel are in the right place, so let's slice the break at the start and end of the 6th, 8th note. Now we'll move the start point of this clip to the start of the second kick. This puts the kick in the right position, and we can get rid of the unwanted kick transient by dragging the start of the kick clip left to cover it. The beat is now in time with the project tempo and is playing nice and tightly, so let's add our second break. Again, we'll turn up its pitch so it's in time. The two breaks are playing different rhythms, so we're getting a bit of a polyrhythmic old school feel, but let's go for something a bit tighter. We can replicate the rhythm of the first break in the second break by copying the hi-hat shuffle from the 2nd 8th note to the 4th and 5th 8th note, then copying the kick, hat, snare chunk onto the section after that. So basically we're just copying what's happening in the first break with the different slices from the second break. The snares need a little tightening up, but not as much as the first breaks did, and we can get rid of the little glitch after the snare by again dragging the left hand side of the following clip forward. If we copy this version of the snare over the second snare, we get a little gap at the end, but it sounds okay even when the break is soloed, so there's no need to mess about with it. You may want to experiment with the tuning of your breaks, so while it's possible to do this without using warp mode, we can use warp mode and maintain the breaks transient as much as possible by setting Beats mode's transient loop mode to off. I felt this break sat most pleasingly with the first break when tuned up plus 20 cents like the first break. The kick on the second break's hi-hat shuffle was making the beat a little too busy for my taste, so I used FabFilter Pro Q3 to high pass that track at about 160 Hz. Now your beats are in time, you can copy sections about to create fills, rolls, and in old school jungle style, edits. Edits typically involve using pitch and volume changes in conjunction with rearranging to create drum-based hooks that were popular in old school jungle and hardcore. Another trick you can try is to reverse hits. Bear in mind that you may get better results if you adjust the start point of reverse sections so that they fit more rhythmically with the rest of the beat. So there you go, add the Kung Fu preset from Reveal Sound Spire and some sound effects from Ray Keith Original Drum Bass Volume 1 with a bit of delay on them, and you're ready to roll out. Well, that is hardcore jungleism in a nutshell. If I wanted to make it sound a little bit more contemporary, maybe I'd have added some one-shots to beef up the kick, snare and hats, but that is very much a story for another time. Speaking of which, if you want some more top production tips, why don't you come back soon for another Loopmasters how-to.